Good day, Dream Builder. Hey, I'm waiting right now to pick up my princess from school, but I wanted to come on here, share with you something that I just got done sharing with a good brother of mine who's going through a battle right now. And I'm talking a battle mentally, I'm talking a battle physically, I'm talking a battle legally, spiritually, all of the things. But the reality of it is he's no different than you, he's no different than me, and we all go through, battles in life. And so the first thing that I wanted to share with you, if you're going through any type of a battle, is understand that you have to be tested for you to have a testimony, right? The way that we all are moved in this world, especially with AI coming so fast, right, is stories. And stories often, almost all of the time, a good story revolves around adversity. So you have to be willing to experience adversity. You have to be willing to be tested so you can have a great story, which becomes your testimony, right? And so that's the first thing that I was telling him. Yes, you're continuously being tested, but at the same time, you're also telling yourself how strong you are. Because the moment that we all go through some type of adversity, the first thoughts that go through our head is, not again. I don't know how I'm going to make it out this way, right? I don't know how I'm going to overcome this. I don't know how I'm going to help them overcome this, whatever type of adversity that you're dealing with. But you always do. And so understand that you've already survived 100% of your roughest, darkest, most craziest days. And you will continue to do it as long as you could just take a deep breath and understand, okay, this is just another test for me to have a stronger testimonial. My book, I'm only on chapter 3. So when you get to chapter 5 and they see what you've overcome in chapter 2, 3, and 4, it's, oh my, I gotta keep reading because this thing is crazy, right? So understand that you just gotta continue to be tested, but it's only gonna get you stronger. If you're used to going to the gym, you're constantly testing your muscles. If you're used to being in school, you're constantly testing your brain. If you're used to playing sports, you're constantly testing your shot, your kick, whatever it is that you're playing, right? So understand that that test, it's only meant for you to have a stronger resume of testimonial. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I wanted to share was that you have to also understand that your story, and this is really good, right? So make sure you understand this. And this is something that has helped me so much through the years after overcoming, losing my two best friends, losing my mom, job, home, all within a matter of 2.5 weeks, battling stage 4 cancer, like all of these things. This has always helped me stay true to who I was. And that's understanding that my story is not for me, right? For everybody, and I just talked to Julie about this, not too long ago, but for everybody in life, right? We're all inspired by something. Whether it's your greatest TV show, your greatest movie, your greatest athlete, we're inspired by them continuously showing what it's like to be a winner. A lot of people talk about Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. They all had to go through battles, bumps, bruises. Steph, in the beginning, he had all of them ankle injuries, right? No matter who it is, if you're a 50 Cent fan, he got shot 5 times, right? You look at Jay-Z, you look at anybody who is somebody now that's a 1%er, they had to be tested a lot of times, right? It's for you to now be inspired by their journey and want to say, I want that. Right? So understand that if they did not share their story, they didn't share their story of tests, they didn't share their story of adversity, they didn't share their story of triumph and overcoming all those things, right? Then they would not have you as a fan or as somebody who, just loves the way that they move, right? And so understand that your story right now, with you being tested, it's the exact same thing, right? And you have to have a story. Now, where am I going with this? Well, one of the things that I told him was, I think that you need to start some type of a YouTube channel or podcast or something where you can constantly share. Like for him right now, he's going through a legal battle and he was like, I don't know how much I can talk about. And I said, well, here's the solution to that. Don't talk about any of it from a first person point of view. Talk about it from, I guess a second person. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but second person or third person point of view. So the way that you do is you think about all of the things that you're currently going through in life, and you say, hey, I was talking to a young brother. For you, it might be a young sister. I was talking to him about this, about that, and how to overcome it on a daily basis, right? So this would be small stories. And then it was like, oh, and he was like, well, how would that work? And I'm like, well, technically you are talking to someone else, because you're talking to your younger self. And if you think about it, your younger self was just that person who you were a minute ago, right? Because every single day we're getting older, we're getting wiser, and we can't turn back time, but at the same time we can get better. Another thing that I told him was, right, like he was like, oh man, I know I just got to get over the perfectionism. And I said, yes, absolutely. And I said, you just got to get the reps in. And he's like, yeah. And I set him up for this. And I said, practice makes what? And like we all say, because it's the things that we've been taught early on, practice makes perfect. But I said, wrong. Practice makes what? Practice makes progression, right? Progression. And that's all we're trying to do, is every single day get 1% better. So that means that every single day you got to be willing to share a part of your story, share a part of your journey. You don't have to share it all, but you got to take practices to understand. He was also talking about how he needed a haircut, how he needed to get this camera right, and he had to go look. And I said, none of those things matter. What matters is that you show up, and every single day you get reps in, because it's not always going to be pretty. There's going to become times where it's raw. There's going to be times where you just don't feel like it. There's going to be times where there's so many distractions. But if you can continue to find a way to get your reps in, that's where you'll be successful. So I'm driving right now. They're rushing us up in this line. So I don't know how much more time that I'll have, but again, I wanted you all to understand this. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about, right? It's about showing up every single day. It's about being raw. It's about being real, but it's about getting the reps in. It's about understanding that your story is not for you. And when I learned that someone else was going to need to hear my story so I could help to move another generation, because everybody has a dream, but at the same time, they need to be exposed to what that could look like. They need to be exposed to whether it's AI, whether it's sports, right? Some of these kids, they've just never been to a NBA game. They've never seen that atmosphere. So while us as parents are telling them, oh man, you got to want to play like Kobe. You got to want to play like Mike. You got to want to play like Steph. But they've never been exposed to it. Don't forget that Steph had a father who was in the NBA. At the age of 7, 8 years old, he was around NBA players for 70-80% of his days, right? Because his dad was practicing. He got to go in locker rooms. He got to sit on the bench. Like even Kyrie, we look at Kyrie, his stepfather was almost a Hall of Famer, and or not stepfather, but his godfather, and Rod Strickland, right? And I talk about sports a lot because I absolutely obviously love sports, but it doesn't matter who it is. A lot of the times, like growing up, when you are exposed, if your dad was a musician, right? Drake, let's look at Drake, for example. His dad was a musician, right? If you are the youngest, let's look at the Jackson 5. Michael was the youngest. But at the same time, like his older brother, that was all they were around. So when he indoctrinated himself into that atmosphere, he was hanging around other musicians. It made him become a what? A musician. A lot of the kids, when they go to their first concert, they might be 4 or 5 years old, and then that's where they're inspired. And so that I share that because, again, it needs to come from somebody being willing to get out there, share their story, share their craft. And from there is where you find success, is where you find meaning, is where you find purpose. And so that's all for this one. But remember, in the dream we trust, share your story today with somebody who needs to hear it. Because otherwise, without any action, that dream that you have, it'll only merely be a fantasy. That's all for this one. We'll catch you on the next one, Dream Builder.